All right, what's going on? You listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast, and Ujumbe means message. I'm glad that you guys are here. Yeah, we're about to do a little something different. We're about to go a little bit further, a little bit deeper. I'm glad that you are here. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe because it's about to go in. We're about to go do a few things. So we're going to talk about thrones of fire and temples of light, the Kandake Queens, and esoteric knowledge of ancient Kush. Yeah, today's gonna be one of them days. Okay, I'm shoot. We are still we're at the end of the Queens of the South series, and we're about to launch into something different, into something new. And so this has been an exciting journey, and we're gonna get into it because a lot of you guys have been enjoying Ethiopia. A lot of you guys have been enjoying ancient Sudan, and might as well lean into it, right? So here it is. Welcome. Okay, don't forget to get something to write on, something to write with. It is summertime, as a matter of fact. Shoot, I forgot about that. How can you forget? Yeah, school is over, but the learning has not stopped. All right, so across the desert and along the sacred Nile, the Happy River, there arose a civilization not only known for its architectural splendor and martial prowess and knowledge, but for divine equilibrium of power and spirit. That is ancient Kush. Okay, at the heart of this African empire stood the Kandake Queens, women of astonishing influence who ruled with authority equal to and often surpassing their male counterparts. Remember, kings and queens in Africa ruled with equal and regularity. They really believed in equality. Okay, all right. The fam has been chiming in. Some of my alumni are here. What's going on, Miss Blue? Greetings, lovely people. She greets everybody. Don't forget to greet everybody as you come in. You're not late. You are on time. All right. All right. Library Without Borders. Okay. Evening. Yeah. What's going on? Evening King. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? I'm excited about this. This is because somebody said something sideways about a year ago, and they thought I forgot. Oh no. Oh no. See, we gotta help develop the people that enjoy this content, but there's some people that like to say slick stuff and sideways things, and I'm finna address that on today. I got time, right? Good evening and good afternoon, morning, wherever you at. What's going on? All right, so these kings and queens of ancient Kush, they have power. See, we often forget that Nubia and Ethiopia were just as powerful as Kemet, if not more. I said what I said. What happens is people would eclipse Kemet, rejecting or neglecting their mother and grandmother. We can't do that. So these were not mere consorts. The queens weren't just consorts, or the king's wives were symbolic figures. They were warriors, strategists, priestess, and embodiments of Ma'at. Okay, the divine balance of truth and justice. But the story of ancient Kush does not stop at royal courts or political alliances or even intrigue, right? Beneath this royal garments of stone temples thrived in esoteric Kushite science. There is a Kushite science to this thing. It's not just Kemetic science, even though African culture engulfs Kemetic science, Kushite, and Ethiopian. But what happens is we kind of lean over into Kemet. But Kush has its own science. We may talk about that. That information has been passed down through mystery schools, sacred rites, and oral tradition. This spiritual science rooted in cosmic alignment, inner alchemy, and ancestral communion. This is a true engine of Kushite greatness. Okay, it's connected the physical and metaphysical, the land and the stars, the seen and unseen. We're going to talk about the seen and unseen today. We're going to get into that. All right. So if I haven't told you already, get something to write on, something to write with. All right. You just get your little soda, some popcorn or whatever it is, and we're going to enjoy this Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, right? So this presentation, we're going to journey into two vital dimensions of Kushite legacy. First, the social, political, and spiritual role of the Kandake Queens, and second, the mystical systems and esoteric teaching. We're going to tap dance on it. We have plenty of time, all right? But This is part 2. This is part 2 of the video, The Amazing Civilization Ethiopia, that I put out last year. I did a series on Ancient Kush last summer, and The Amazing Civilization of Ethiopia took off. Okay, and everybody liked it. So this is part 2. It took me long enough, but hey, it is what it is, right? Let's get it. Now, somebody asked a question. Okay, Empress TI4 Team T140. She says, "I'm Ethiopian and I appreciate the videos. The question is, what spiritual practice? What spiritual practice in what spiritual practice is in ancient Kush? Believe it or not, there is an ancient Kushite spiritual practice. Okay, we neglect, we neglect Kush in Ethiopia, not understanding and not realizing that they have a spiritual practice, a spiritual system also very similar, not the same, very similar to Kemet. All right. So let's talk about it a little bit. Now, today, we're going to talk about the political and spiritual power of the Kandake Queens, feminine leadership in Nubian history, spiritual science and esoteric knowledge in ancient Kushite culture, symbolism of the Lion Temple of Naqa. I told you I was going to come back and get it. I told you. All right. Symbolism of the Lion Temple of Naqa, the esoteric role of Apedemak in Kushite theology, Kushite practices in astrology, alchemy, initiation, and cosmic law. This is going to be loaded. And we're going to talk about the links between Ethiopia, Kush, and Kemet. And we may discuss hidden African spiritual system and sacred science. And I'm going to check roll. Okay. Even though school's over, we still getting this information, right? Now, here it is. Now, somebody said this. Yeah, out the gate. I'm going in out the gate. I don't care. Okay, somebody said this. Put your history right. Now, look at the grammar. Put your history right. Put your history right. These two pictures are from Eritrea. Now, Ethiopia, before you say something, you should know exactly where they came from. We Eritrean, we don't want to be called Ethiopians. Please correct it. This is Hirititi Williams 4343. Fam, read this. Okay? Read this. Once again, for those in the back, this person, Hirititi Williams, somebody that's Eritrean, last name is Williams, but I digress. Put your history right. Put it. Place your history right. Okay, I guess you could say that. These two pictures are from Eritrea, not Ethiopia. Before you say something, you should know exactly where they come from. We Eritrean, we don't want to be called Ethiopians. Please correct it. This is the picture in question. Okay? This is the picture in question. This individual is saying that these two ladies on the other side are what do you say? They're from Eritrea and not Ethiopia. He is terribly wrong and totally off because these two pictures are from Ethiopia and Sudan. He's telling me to put my history correct and everything, but bro, these two pictures are not Eritrean. These sisters are from Sudan and Ethiopia, okay, respectively, okay. And of course, I had to put one of our Kandake queens in the middle because pictures don't lie, and culture do connect, okay. In the middle, this is almost Nefertari, all right. She looked just like these two sisters here. You're very welcome. All right. Now, let's continue. This is another sister from Sudan. Even it says Billy Sudanese and Egypti on the left-hand side there. This is about 100 years ago. So these people that was alive, 100 years ago, that wrote this postcard said Egypti / or Belel Sudanese. They were basically one and the same 100 years ago. And look at their facial features. They do not look like the other people, the special guests. You're very welcome. I got plenty of time this summer. But look at it. All right. So again, here's another picture. Now, I'm gonna put that out there. I think that this I think the Heru and Maquette is not a man. It is actually a facial feature of a woman. You know, but that's another discussion another day. But here's my response. Here's my response to him. Real quick. I didn't call Eritrea Williams an Ethiopian. I didn't call him an Ethiopian, by the way. Eritrea is a nation that just got here. I'm not going to lie to you. They shout out to the family of Eritrea, but as a nation, as a country, they're about 40 years old. I'm older than Eritrea. Okay, matter of fact, they're an offshoot of an Italian colonization. Let's be real about it. Okay, let's be honest. And with all the political turmoil and a lot of political issues that was happening, and a lot of people want to change economic systems from free market to communist, back and forth, and all these things, here comes Eritrea. Okay, and if gained independence in 1993, I was 13 in 1993. Okay, originally it was part of the land. Originally, thousands of years ago, Eritrea was part of the land of Punt or Ta Neter. Punt or Ta Neter. And it was a part of the kingdom of Axum in other times. So Eritrea was engulfed or connected to other larger nations up until probably the 90s. Remember, the primary focus for us is Nile Valley culture overall. Okay? Nile Valley culture overall. Not isolating one group over another. But since we're going to talk about it, I do try to give nations their due. And I try to reference the nations the best way I can and identify the people and their location. So this is one of those things, okay? But thanks to him, we have part 2 of this, right? Now, so the Axumite, this is Sister B. Sheba. Shout out to Sister B. Sheba. She responded also. The Axumite Empire controlled parts of Yemen for centuries. Sabian script is found in obelisks in northern Ethiopia, Tigray, in Axum, the oldest church in Yeha, and in Eritrea. Axumite Empire controlled parts of Yemen, Tigray, in Axum, and in Eritrea, which were both part of the Axumite Empire. Prove my point, right? There are also connections with cultural food in this entire region, and also Somalia. Shout out to the family Somalia. Injera is the flatbread made of teff. That is a staple food, Ethiopians and Eritreans. You trying to separate yourself from another nation, but your food is the same. All right. So, but if you look at, she said, if you look at Kanjero in Somalia and Lahud, another flatbread in Yemen, you will notice the similarities in these three. The Semitic languages and Sabian Arabic connections you mentioned are also significant indicators of the connections across the Red Sea states within the broader Middle East. Sister B. Sheba, shout out to the fam. Now, the languages are similar and the food is similar. So I am doing my best to put my history right. All right. So let's continue. Let's get it. So today we're going to talk about the political and spiritual power of the Kandake Queens, feminine leadership, symbolism of the Lion Temple of Naqa, the esoteric role of Apedemak, the Kushite practices, links between Ethiopia, Kush, and Kemet. Believe it or not, they're all connected. Hidden African spiritual system, and like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And I think the fam is already talking. Yeah, yes, they are. Yeah, very beautiful. Yeah, all right. And I haven't forgot about you also about Congo too. I haven't forgot about that. Let's go. Now, here it is. When we deal with the political and spiritual power of the Kandake Queens, when we talk about, say, the African greatness, this is true. Indigenous rooted greatness. We cannot ignore the women that stood at the helm of civilization. The queens, the Kandake Queens, sometimes spelled Candace, weren't just royal consorts. They weren't just wives of the king, right? These women were warriors, strategists, spiritual leaders, and rulers in their own right. I cannot stress that enough. These sisters were powerful, okay? In the Kushite Empire, especially during the height of Meroe's influence around 300 before Common Era to 350. The Kandake held a position that would rival, if not surpass, that of her male counterparts. This wasn't just symbolic power or just a placeholder. This was real political, military, and spiritual leadership. We as a people always connected all of those things: the political side, the military side, and spiritual side. We don't divorce those. That's the reason why a lot of people don't understand what's going on in our society. It's because our leaders are not connected with all these things. We have leaders that talk a lot, but they don't throw hands. We have a lot of people that throw hands, but they're not connected to the ancestors. See what I'm saying? So there you have it. Now, before I get to that, the title, it wasn't just a name. It passed through lineages. Okay, it was often co-ruled with the king. In many instances, she held more sway, just like Queen Tai, who had a lot of political power and a lot of influence during the 18th dynasty. The Candaces of Nubia, of Kush, had the same power. So she decided foreign policy. She led troops into battle and represented divine authority in both public and private ceremonies and temple rites initiations. According to classical sources like the Greek historian Strabo and Roman accounts, these women commanded armies against the Romans and held their own. Okay, according to sources, the Meroic cursive writing, the queen is referred to as Kandake or Kandake. Okay, Kandake. She was a core, Qore, core and Kandake. Core and Kandake. Core means ruler, Kandake means queen. So she was both. You see what I'm saying? So according to Meroic script, Meroic writing, she was core and Kandake. All right. Now, like I said, they held their own. It wasn't just ritual, but it was absolute, right? So, what were some of these ceremony and temple rites? Give me a minute. Because I know Brother Mo, once he check in, he wanna know about that. All right, now back to political and spiritual power, Kandake Queens. Okay, now the Queen Amanirenas, Queen Amanirenas of Nubia, one of the most famous Kandake. When Augustus Caesar tried to bring Kush under Roman control in 25 before Common Era, she wasn't playing with him. See, a lot of people think that Rome ran everything and ran everybody. When they came to the south, when they crossed the desert of Kemet into Nubia, they weren't playing with them. Okay, they really drew the line, and they had Ta-Seti was called the land of the bow, and it wasn't just talk. Your eyes would come up missing miles away. They wasn't playing with you. So when Augustus Caesar tried to bring Kush under Roman control, Amanirenas led the troops, and she was doing this with one eye. Okay. She led them into battle, captured Roman forces, even defaced statues of Augustus in a symbolic act of rebellion. This was no accident. This was psychological warfare in ancient style. They was not playing with them. They was we forget that not only the Europeans were destroying or defacing statues. Our ancestors were doing the same thing, and they said, "Bro, you keep doing that, we got you. We're gonna tear your stuff up," right? So she was the most formidable ruler of Kingdom of Kush, the powerful Nubian civilization that thrived in which is now Sudan. She ruled approximately Amanirenas. She ruled around 40 BC to 10 before Common Era, and she was part of the Kandake dynasty, a line of powerful queens. So she inherited a kingdom with the strong military already. She just took it to the next level. Okay, they had deep traditions and spiritual connection to the Neteru. Okay, as Kandake, she was expected to be not just a ruler, but a warrior, a strategist, and a religious leader who defended her land and its cultural identity. I told you guys they needed all of these things. Okay, They needed all of these things. Our African leaders did all these things. Let me see. Library Without Borders said, I agree about the leaders leading and not being connected to the answer. These are facts. That's the reason why when they get into power, we don't know what's going on or why they switched up. They weren't for us in the first place because they didn't come from among us. We're so quick to raise up leaders, not knowing where they come from, not knowing who they really are. That's our problem. We don't vet people. We vet people, but then we don't vet at the right time. Okay. We vet people when it comes down to what they say and how they say it. But we invite everybody else to the cookout, though. You see what I'm saying? So that's a problem. Okay. Let's continue. So one of the defining moments of Amanirenas was her conflict with the Roman Empire. Okay, in 30 before Common Era, following the defeat of Cleopatra VII and Mark Antony. Look, I told you Cleopatra wasn't her. Okay, she was defeated along with her new boyfriend, and Egypt fell under Roman control, and Emperor Augustus attempted to expand the Roman influence into Nubia, and they wasn't having that. Refusing to accept Roman rule, Amanirenas launched an audacious military campaign against Rome, invading southern Egypt, capturing several key cities, including Aswan and Philly. Shout out to the fam. Shout out to the fam in Aswan. Okay, believe it or not, ready or not, the Aswan area has a lot of Nubian and Southern Egyptian culture and influence, right? That is where if you want to know where the original Egyptians live and where they are now, they're in the Aswan area. Very welcome. So Amanirenas, her forces destroyed Roman statues and even defaced the statue of Emperor Augustus, right? Now remember, she led her troops. This is a one-eyed warrior queen. She led them into battle. She captured the Roman forts and even defaced the statues. This was no accident. Okay. I said it again. This was not an accident. Okay. She knew that this attack was going to bruise Rome's ego. And I think they still haven't gotten over that. Okay. All right. Now, so this has roots in deep African matrilineal culture, right? The thing is, in order to rule, the king and queen had to be of southern lineage. They had to bring balance in and bring divine balance in Ma'at, and the queen embodied the vital aspect of this balance. Okay, in order to rule the two lands, Kush and Kemet, the king and queen had to be from the south. Now, for example, I mentioned this many times. There's only a couple of times where a king in Kemet married somebody within the family, some kind of royal family, right? But normally, the rulers came from the south. They're either from another royal family or straight up from Ethiopia, Sudan. So the king had to have someone of southern lineage, Ethiopian or Sudanese, ensuring that divine authority flowed through maternal royal bloodlines. The Kandake was the gatekeeper of legitimacy. Okay, now, so this really quick, this has roots deep in when we think about it. The power, when it come down to leadership and rulership, the power didn't come through the father; it came through the mother. Okay, the power was in most African royal systems, other than maybe the Zulus. Correct me if I'm wrong. The root of power came through the mother, not the father. And scientifically, genetically, your genes are stronger through your mother's side, not your father's side. Okay, but the womb is not just the giver of life; it was the keeper of kingship, and so the Kandake was not just a partner, but a maker of kings. Without her, the king's authority was suspect. Okay, this is why Egyptian pharaohs, especially those trying to establish new dynasties, would marry Kushite queens. It wasn't just politics; it was spiritual validation. Okay, Even in funerary art and temple inscriptions, you see the Kandake seated as an equal to the king, and sometimes even larger than him, physically and symbolically dominating the frame. Okay, she's seen offering to the natural to the gods, leading rituals, holding the fly whisk or crook and flail, because they had that in Kush also, because Kush gave birth to Kemet. These same symbols carried by kings of Kemet. Now, these weren't gender symbols, they were power symbols. See, we had to get past, gender and roles and whatnot. Some of these things straight up represented power. If you held them, and if you knew what they were and what they meant, it meant power. Okay. So we got to get past, hearsay and gender wars and all these things. We as a people got to be focused on the absolute and what is. Okay. So when our ancestors were leading the people, they implemented power. The Kandake held both the physical and metaphysical keys to rule. Okay. Now, modern African women looking for role models rooted in heritage should not have looked outside of Africa. That's my opinion. Okay, the Kandake Queens, they're them. Leadership wasn't just a concept; it was an actual reality. It was balanced, it was inclusive and spiritual, and it's important that we as a people acknowledge and teach this. Okay, we got to reclaim this. We got to embed it somehow in our memory. We have to get further south. We got to do it, y'all. We're focused on Kemet, which is cool, but Kush and Ethiopia has something to offer also. Okay, so let's go. The spiritual science and esoteric knowledge in ancient Kushite culture. Here we go. Here it is. Now, before we get into that though, I got a question. See, hold on. I got a question. Get ready. Here it is. Old school rap or new school rap? Let's argue. Like and comment below. Let me know. Old school rap. And now notice I did not say era. I did not say decade. I just said old school or new school. Yeah. Let me know. Matter of fact, I didn't even regionalize this thing. I didn't. Okay, for music lovers, I know it can go deep. I know, but y'all let me know. Old school rap, new school rap. Okay, is it the 90s? Okay, which side of the 90s? Is it pre-95? Okay. Okay, old school rap. Duh. Okay, now. Okay, since Library Without Borders went on, put this out here. Okay. Now, which era, which decade? Because according to some people, okay, they would say anything but before this year is old school. Matter of fact, they're saying that DMX and Tupac and them, that's old school. Wait a minute, hold on. So which decade? Which one? Is it the 80s? Which is it the 90s? Is it Blue says I'll pass on all of it. I can't. Okay, I can't because hip hop is part of our culture. That's part of our storytelling culture. You see what I'm saying? We have griot. We focus on, say, the West African griot, the jele, that tells the stories with the kora and the music. We still do it. We just use another form of it, but we gotta do right by it, right? All right, let's go. Now, spiritual knowledge and esoteric, spiritual science and esoteric knowledge, right? Let's get it. Okay. Let me get my screen together. Now, so getting into the spiritual technology, the esoteric science that powered Kushite civilization. See, we talk about ancient cultures, but we often get caught up in the visible, what is seen, the pyramids and the gold and the lineages or the warfare, the political issues, Queen Sebek-Neferu, King Tut and them. But what's often left out what happened is it gets dismissed or misunderstood. So these civilizations perceived a different kind of reality for us. The Kushite had a layered worldview. They understood the universe as a bridge between the seen and the unseen. The Kushite, uh, the Kushite family, the people of ancient Kush, they believed there was a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Okay, the visible and the invisible, the tangible and the energetic. Okay, and they didn't just believe it; they lived it, and they structured their society around it. Right. So the Kushite, like their Egyptian children, had spiritual knowledge that was not separate from daily life. It was embedded in everything: how they farmed, how they forged metal, how they buried the ancestors. But it wasn't superstition; it was a reality to them. Okay, it was coded wisdom, passed down through initiation, symbols, guilds, and oral tradition. This was a spiritual science, a system of understanding between the seen and the unseen worlds. We as Africans in the diaspora, and I said that, I meant what I said, we have always connected the spiritual with something physical. We have always done that. Okay. Let me see what the family said. Let me see. Okay. Library Without Borders. I grew up with most of the 80s era, being born in the 80s and 90s. The 90s all the way early 2000s would have been influenced my teen years. Yeah. Music has a major influence in our society, believe it or not. And that is, believe it or not, even though the CDs, the tapes, records, or whatever, that was a scene, but the musical notes was part of that unseen. Now it is in Wi-Fi. Now it is in that space. Okay. So this was a spiritual science for us, a system of understanding the seen and unseen. We use those words to explain what we feel and what we think, right? So the esoteric science that powered Kushite civilization. See, when we talk about ancient culture, we also get caught up, like I said, pyramids, gold, royal lineages, warfare, right? But what's often left out, gets dismissed and misunderstood. The Kushites, just like other African cultures, Yoruba, shout out to the family Yoruba, Bakongo, Nzambi Mupungu, okay, Zulu, okay, Unkulukulu. They are layered, they are a layered worldview. Once again, the Kushites, just like other African cultures, the Yoruba, they use the Orishas, right? The Bakongo, Nzambi Mupungu, and Zulus, that's Unkulukulu. Okay, I may mispronounce it, but they all have a similar root. They all are trying to explain the unseen or the unexplainable. Okay, and they use science. It's not just shell throwing and a few words. This is an actual science. Okay, and so, and fun fact, a lot of my ancestors did come from either they came from these areas. So I do have a heart for that. Grand Madam Turo, okay. All right, greet everybody to come in. Okay, all right. And shout out to Grand Madam. She is with the Rock With Me Nation. We got to bring back, for real, we got to bring back DOB real quick, because we still got some things to address with the Black Panther and everything. We got to deal with that. Greet everybody to come in. Okay. Landra Land. Okay, hello everyone. Great to get a better understanding of what's flowing through my DNA. Yeah, we discussed a little bit of genetics. We did that. We talked about the Jed and the genetics symbolism with the actual Jed pillar. Check that out when we get done with this. But yes, a lot, believe it or not, see a lot of, like the Fulani and the Hausa, a lot of West African nations in their stories, they would say that they came from the Nile Valley or from the East Africa somewhere. Okay. Yeah. So it's serious. They would say that. And and a lot of people try to separate themselves from Africa. I can't speak for them, but I do know I did run a DNA test and my ancestors came from some of these places. Okay. All right. Said the Bakongo are actually a tribe in Congo. That's new. I didn't know that. Okay, this is so cool. You need to work with the pronunciation. Yeah. I told you, I'm country as corn, so a lot of my words don't come out right, but I know what I'm saying. I think. Yeah, Afro. Let me see. Afro. N8V World. Okay, Habari Yajani, brother. Give thanks for this knowledge stream. Yeah, Habari Gani. What's going on, y'all? Okay. Uh yeah, he said being late is better than a no-show because I'm checking roll. I'm checking roll. All right. So let's get it. Let's go. All right. Now, let's go because the family's been asking about esoteric and Kemetic science, and I decided to lace it in here. Surprise, you're welcome. Here it is. Esoteric science. They understood, the Kushite people understood the universe as a bridge between the seen and the unseen, the visible, the kahet, the visible kaet, and the invisible sekhem. We talked about sekhem, which is a energy or some sort of power. We talked about that also, the tangible and the energetic. And they didn't just believe, they lived it, right? So yes, as you see, okay, this represents the Haru M Aket, these two lines here, right? And you see the little circle with the little bowl that represents the horizon, right? So what does this mean? What does this mean? This means this person or ruler or leader is focused on the past, present, and the future. Okay. Whenever you see this, okay, this is a multidimensional thinking process, a 3D or 4D thinking process. All right. So whenever you see this, this is the Haru M Haket, and this is a symbol that represents past, present, and future. All right. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit of Kemetic and esoteric science a little bit, but I like this symbol. It means a lot to me. But yeah, but that basic that circle represents the sun in the horizon. Okay, but be it rising or setting. Okay. Now the Kushites believed that spiritual knowledge was not separate from daily life. They embedded in it was embedded in everything. This was superstition. This was sacred knowledge. This living this science was a living, breathing science of consciousness, energy, and matter. Okay, and how it was done? It was passed down. Okay, it was passed down through initiation, symbols, guilds, and oral tradition. Okay, we forget that we have a process. Okay, everything is an initiation process. Everything has a symbol, something symbolic. There is a guild, there is a structure, there is oral tradition. A lot of things aren't written down in books. Okay, a lot of things aren't. It's just you sitting with the elder, listening to what they say. Okay, and the system of understanding both the material, the ta, and the spiritual duat. This is a system that explains the planes of existence. Okay, now that is we're done with that part. Now we're gonna get into a little bit more of the seen world. Okay, let's start with the seen world. Okay, what you can touch, smell, build, and measure. That is the seen world. Okay, metallurgy or working metals is one. Okay, I know some people like to draw. Okay, my daughter, Princess Cam, she knows how to paint. Okay, that is another one. Okay, working before the dawn of written history, Kushites were already mastering metal work. Okay, we are talking about the ironsmiths of Taseti region, part of the ancestral Anu people, ANU, the Anu people. Fun fact. Okay, I've been told Osiris was part of the Sudanese Anu people. Osiris was a real person, from what I've been told. All right. So the Anu people, the ancient pre-dynastic group referenced in early Comedian texts. We're going to break this down. Let's get it. Now, here it is. That picture, okay? Got a better picture of that, all right? So now, in the very first line, okay, the Hetu, okay, that represents the temples, okay? Het is one, singular, U means multiple. Hetu, that's the temple. Line 2, that is Set, okay? Set. Now, before Osiris was popular, before Heru was popular, there was a group of people that revered Set. All right. Line 3, that is the Anu. And I told you, remember many times before, when you see that circle with an X in it, that is a city or a place. The Anu, that is a city, the cities of the Anu people. And Ta Neter or Terra Neter or that is the land of God, or God's land, a devoted one of God. Okay, and we have an African here with a stick. Okay, is a walking stick. Kind of reminds me of the Maasai people. Shout out to the people in Kenya. Okay, the Maasai people would kind of have they were dressed like this. So this, one more time before we move on, the top line here, that when you see a little box that's shaped like a box, that is het. Okay, that means a house. Okay, het-u, that's temple, the house of. Okay, set, the Nitaru set. Okay, remember before Osiris and Horus, Set was revered in a lot of places, and Net Anu, the cities of the Anu people, and Taneter, that is the land devoted one to God, or land of God. Right now, here's another one. This is very familiar. This is a very famous image of Menes, or the Scorpion King. Okay, now notice he already has on one side, on the left hand side, he has the white crown on his head representing Upper Egypt, which is Nubia in the south, and the red crown, which represents Lower Egypt, which is in the north. There's some other things you can see. Okay, this is pre-dynastic. This is Narmer, who unified Upper and Lower Egypt, right? There's a couple things that caught my attention here. Haru is already there, and that looks like Anubis right there. I don't know, but yeah, we're gonna break this down in a few seconds. But look at that. Kemetic culture was already in place. Why? Because it came from Kush. Let's get it. Now, we'll get back to this in a second. The blacksmiths weren't just artisans in African spiritual tradition. The blacksmith was a priest of fire. I think somebody mentioned fire signs and everything. Priest of fire. The forge is not just a workplace. It is a temple, an ibit. Okay, a temple, ibit, or a Jesharu, or the Holy of Holies. Okay, so the blacksmiths weren't just somebody working. They was working magic. They was making something out of nothing. Okay, that's what it was. In their garage, or their place of business, that was part of their spiritual custom, their spiritual tradition. When they got dressed, when they put their clothes on, they was getting ready to work magic. They was getting ready to make something out of nothing. We got to think about, whenever we do something. All right, let me get out this real quick. Whenever we do something, we gotta take on the mentality that we're about to do something great and do something important, to make something out of nothing. Okay, our ancestors did it all the time. Some people call it magic, other people call it science, whatever you want to call it. But this is what they did. Okay, and their place was a sanctuary. Okay, it was important to them. This was like the oldest tradition. Okay, using fire to mold something, using water to mold something, using clay, right? Fire transforms matter, and in doing so, it echoes the transformations of the soul. This is alchemy. Yep. Landry, yep, you sure right. Alchemists. This is fam. This is eons before Europe knew what their left hand was and their right hand was. This is centuries before this. This is 5,000 plus years before this. They already had the understanding of alchemy. Okay? It echoed the transformation of the soul. Fire does. The hammer isn't just a tool. It was a wand of willpower. The banging, every strike, the pinging was an invocation. Okay, it's not craft, it's alchemy. Yeah, they was making it happen. Somebody asked them to do something for them. They made something out of nothing. This was happening in ancient Nubia. This was happening in ancient Ethiopia before Kemet came on the scene. I said what I said. Yep. Grand Madam, you came just in time because I got some time. This is summer, And the family's been asking questions. They wanna go deeper. So you bring your shovels, and we about to get into it. All right, because yes, this wasn't just a Kemetic thing. This was a Nile Valley thing, and the people were already working metals. They was already making bricks, and they was already making stone. I'm gonna get back to that picture in a second, but the Kushite culture was already in place and intact. The customs was already in place and intact before the first dynasty. Think about it. Before we were born, we had our grandparents. They was already living and doing their thing before we got here. And when we got here, they just said, hey, do this and don't do that. Try this, don't try that. It's a good idea. Make some advanced techniques to it. Because remember, the further south you went towards Congo and those areas, that was nothing but rainforest. So they could not put everything in stone. So the oral tradition was the only way they can do anything with it. You watch what I'm doing. You see how I'm making this fire? You make this fire like that. All right? Yeah, it's a must. This is a drop down knowledge king. Yeah, it is a must. I'm out now. So we about to talk. So now that I have almost everybody that understands that this is Ujumbe Podcast is a learning institution. This is not just a person that's running his mouth and saying words. There's some things, there's facts that we're connecting, that we're using. Okay. So it's just not me talking all the time about one side of Africa and rejecting the others. Everything is connected. So let's continue. Now, the unseen world. These smiths didn't work in isolation. They belonged to mystery schools, spiritual lodges, or artisan guilds where knowledge was transmitted in degrees. So the Europeans call themselves repackaging something, repackaging a system, and telling you that you got to pay money for something that you already know. That's for free. All right. Much like the African customs, Freemasonry, or spiritual brotherhoods that came later, the initiation process was key. You didn't just learn techniques, you learned the deeper meanings, the sacred knowledge behind them. Each stage of tool making, mere stages of cosmogenesis, from chaos to order, from ore, from clay and dirt to a divine form that came out of your mind. The smith, the ironsmith, was both creator and medium, bringing this unseen, bringing the scene with the unseen through fire, intention, and mastery. Because the reason why I say fire, intention, and mastery is because of this. If it's too hot, it's not going to do anything. But if it's too cold, he won't be able to do anything with it. He was the master of this. Okay. Now, the unseen world. Let's get into it. Now, sacred cosmology, the unseen world, right? Now, you understand the theme. You understand what it is. You understand what it is. The stars, the planets. There's a rhythmic dance of the sun across the Nile Valley, right? These weren't just astronomical phenomena. These were divine signatures. Okay. This was handwritings. Okay. The Kushite understood that celestial movements were reflections of spiritual principles of ma'at and balance. Okay. The temples weren't just buildings, weren't just places to look at. They were cosmic resonators, aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and sacred stars like Sirius. These structures were designed to harness energy from the heavens. We mentioned this many times before, but a lot of temples throughout the Nile Valley was either associated with the alignment of the sun, or mostly, it depends on how old they are, they was aligned with stars. Because I learned this, the Sphinx was in line with the constellation of Leo, and that is 10,500 years ago. So a lot of these other structures, which we will talk about in the coming months, were in line with a major constellation. So that means if they were lining these stones up, these statues up to these constellations, to these stars, they was observing this thousands of years before they put a brick down. Yep. So they were aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and stars, like Sirius. Like I said, they harness energy. Then there's certain times of year where certain stars or the sun would rise or set. It would shoot through some of these areas and it would light that room up. So when you walked into a temple, you're entering a space where the unseen touched down into the seen, with geometry, light, and sound created portals for divine communion. By the way, if you're enjoying this content, if you want some more of that, hit the subscribe button. And even though Abu Simbel has been moved, from its original place, which was in Nubia, the sun still rises and sets in perfect symmetry. Okay, it does. Now, really quick, here's a book reference, Fingerprints of the Gods. Okay, I would have that in the description also. All right, so there it is. Now, and I haven't forgot, the Lion Temple is loading. Yeah, we're going south. We're going south. Here it is. Now, so we're about to discuss Apedemak and the Lion Temple in a few minutes, so get ready for that. I love this picture, though. This Apedemak was nothing to be played with. Okay, this is the Nubian Neteru. He's one of the major Neteru of Nubia, Apedemak. Okay, get ready. Now, Kushite Theology. Now, the same principle that was applied in Kemet can be easily applied in Kush. Okay, Osiris, he was more than just a myth. He was actually a real person, most likely from modern Sudan or Ethiopia, who was later deified. I told you, kings become legends, legends become legendary. His narrative of death and resurrection wasn't just symbolic, it was a metaphysical instruction. Okay, and just like when we talked about Sobek Neferu in the Chamber of Ashes, there was always a process of death and resurrection, or spiritual, some kind of spiritual rebirth, or coming or growing or growth, right? Osiris, his journey mapped the soul's path from maternal life to a spiritual rebirth, right? So the reason why, according to the king's list, the reason why I say that his name is King Osiris is there are a group of pre-dynastic kings with names such as Seka, Ku, and Tu. Pre-dynastic kings, right? And get this, for those who study the Turin Canon, shout out to the fam that's really getting into this. The Turin Canon names of Ra, Geb, Osiris, Set, Haru, Jehuti, Ma'at, Haru, the Shimshu Haru. They ruled during the pre-dynastic era. Now, the Europeans would like to say that these people did not exist in physical form. They would like to say that. However, they want us to believe that Elizabeth I was a real person too. We don't know that for sure. You see what I'm saying? I know that's a crazy statement, but what I'm saying is they would like for us to believe that some of our heroes they were just myths. Some of these people were real people also. But over time, their stories became legends, right? And yes, there is a group of people called the Shimsu Haru, the 40 to 43 kings. They didn't name them by name individually, but these were 41 to 43 kings. They was called the followers of Haru. So Haru was already a person or king that was already established. So this is according to the Turin Canon pre-dynastic period. Now, do you think we should investigate? Y'all let me know. All right, comment below. You think we should investigate the kings before the pharaohs and queens before pharaohs? Because my aunt was in the mix also. Y'all let me know. All right. Now, because here's another reason why. There's a tomb of Osiris by the pyramids. That's what they call it. And they don't just call things, just be calling things. So there's a tomb of Osiris by the pyramid. Let's put two and two together. And this is what it looks like. According to them, this is what it looks like. They have the layers, and then the bottom shaft is supposedly where he would have been buried. This is by the pyramids, and we told you before that the Temple of Isis was situated next to the Sphinx of Heru and Maket, and they said the people. Where's the book at? I gotta find it. If I can find that book. Oh, here it is. In this book. Okay. Ancient Records of Egypt, Volume 1 by James Breasted. They said there was a Temple of Isis next to the Sphinx. And they indicated that the people of Kemet were saying that it was older than the Sphinx. Okay. There it is. Now, and this was next to the Abydos necropolis. The Abydos necropolis is an ancient location. It's an ancient location. All right. So the what is that? The tomb of Osiris by the pyramids, and the Abydos necropolis is a sacred site, and this necropolis housed a lot of pre-dynastic rulers. All right. Now, before we go further, we're about to break this down real quick. Before we go further, don't forget to like and subscribe because we're about to get into it. I told you I was coming back to get it. And so, just as promised, we're going to break this down. The Narmer Palette. Yes, the very first king of Kemet that united the two lands. He was the first Semitawi. Okay, here we go. Now, this was established during Naqa, the Naqa 3 era. Okay, the Abydos necropolis was established during the Naqa 3 era, 3200 to 3000 BC before Common Era. The Naqa era developed the first hieroglyphics, so it wasn't in Kemet. And as far as like the established dynasties, this happened before that. The Narmer or Menes Palette was made during this time. This marked the unification of Upper and Lower Kemet and the invention of sail navigation. So Mo asked the question, did the people of Egypt sail around, in various parts of the world? Yes, they did before we thought they would. Before, say, Tutmosis III and them, before Hatshepsut and all them, they was already sailing. Okay, they was already using sailboats and navigation like that. I think, let me see, hold on. I think somebody is up. Okay, what's going on, Miss Haynes? What's going on? All right. Very good. Now, here we go. The Sedek. All right. The Sedek, Serekh. Sedek. Narmer established the regular use of a Sedek. This is a rectangular enclosure representing a gate of a palace with Heru on top of it. This denoting royalty is living there, or royalty is there. Okay, what does the Sedek look like? Okay, this is what it looks like. All right. Now, in long form, you may see a gate, and maybe, the falcon right there, you see a gate, palace gate, and the person's name. Or you'll see Heru at the very top, on top of the palace gate. It was like an official flag. They were saying that, okay, if you see this on a building, that means the pharaoh or the Insubiti or the royal family lives there. Okay, let's continue. Now, let's break this down. Here it is. All right, the Narmer palette. Okay, on the top middle, that is his name. Okay, there's Narmer or Menes, right? On both sides, what do you notice? You see a calf or a bull. That represents Heteru. This is pre-dynastic. Okay, this is pre-dynastic. So Heteru and Horus was already part of the culture, right? So on the right side, there is a boat with an open door. What do you think that means? What do you think this boat going into this open door means? What do you think? Comment below. But yes, on the right, you see a little boat and an open door. Under the boat, there are the defeated enemies. Okay, all these bodies here, they was laid out. Okay, it was done. It was cooked. All right. Then you have a priest right here wearing a leopard skin. That was another age-old tradition. We mentioned the priesthood of Amun and many other priests. They would wear the leopard skin, emblematic of their office and their station. This was already in place. This guy already had the leopard skin on. He already had it on. And in front of him, okay, were men or stewards with 4 flags or standards representing the Neteru of the ancestors. I would like to believe, I'll get a better picture in a second. I like to believe this is Heru also. These are different flags, different from different regions of that area, right? And we're going to get to him in a second. But we have in the middle his name. On both sides, we have Heteru. We have the boat going into a door. What do you think that means? I don't know. Y'all tell me. Bodies there. And then we have the priests and the standard bearers representing the Neteru or the ancestors. And hold on, I have an idea as far as why they're in front of the king instead of the king in front of them, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, then we have Narmer right here wearing the red crown of Lord Kemet. He's wearing a bull tail and an apron. The bull tail represents power, okay, force. He had the oxtail of the bull tail wrapped around him, and behind him was his servant with a star in his hand, right? And in the king's hand is a war hammer, okay, or a setting maul or whatever. It wasn't just for show, okay. They didn't have that hammer for nothing. You're gonna get that work, okay. All right. Let me see. Let me get to them. Now, also, we have 2 other individuals here. Okay, these are mythological figures. I don't know what their names are. I don't know. I can't say. But if you know the answer, y'all tell me. These 2 figures here wrapped together. I would like to believe. I would like to believe that this was symbolic of the king tying Upper and Lower Egypt together. Okay. And also we have another bull here breaking down the doors and trampling the enemies. They're showing that he is the most powerful. And and to be fair, remember, it took a lot of work for this man to unite these two groups of people. Okay, not just groups of people, nations. These were talking about not only think about it, these were multiple nomes, multiple rulers. Basically, these nomes represented neighborhoods. So he had to subdue or use a little diplomacy, okay, with these other kings, or go to work, as you can see, okay. And notice the nose; it wasn't flat, okay. But notice it took a lot of power and a lot of strength and knowledge to unite the 2 lands. That he did. Now, also, we have, of course, we have Heteru again. We have that hammer or setting maul right there, about to go to work. But notice this. This is Heru again. Okay. So Heru was already in Kemetic culture before Kemet became an empire. Heteru or Hathor was also in place before Kemet was an empire. Okay. Now, this was another one, the crystal incense. The crystal incense. This is a small little circular, like incense burner, incense bowl. Okay, and for the archaeologists, they this is the drawing or the design. If it was expanded, because it was like designed like a small little cup, right? This was found in Nubia. All right. Notice. Let's break this down. We have these 3 sacred boats. So we already know that they were sailing, right? We have the falcon, which we know that the falcon represented Heru. We have we don't know the king, but we have a seated ruler with the white crown of Upper Egypt, which is the south. We have a prisoner and the palace facade again. The palace facade. Now, where did you see that palace facade at? Right here. Okay, the palace facade right there. Around design, the palace facade was the Esoteric, right? Let's go back. Now, we have the sailboats, prisoner going somewhere, and an antelope. Okay, why is that important? Why is a antelope important? The reason why the antelope is important was because at one point in time, Egypt and Nubia wasn't desert. An antelope is only at a place where there's a lot of vegetation. So we have another thing. So this was at least 8,000 years old. Okay, we have the feline, which I would like to believe either that represented Sekhmet or Baset. But yes, the antelope, because a lot of people would like to say West Africa was not connected to Kemet. You forgot. You forgot about Lake Chad, number one, and number two. There was a yellow Nile that broke out and sprung into that reached towards West Africa. It's dried up all the way, but it was like 10,000 some odd years old. So on this coastal incense burner, we have the feline here. We have 3 sacred boats. We have an antelope, which represented, which tells us that Kemet and Kush had a lot of grassland there. Okay, a rosette, the falcon deity, which is Haru. We have the king here, and we notice there's a little crook and flail in his hand. Okay, and we have a prisoner. They're taking him somewhere, right? And we have a palace facade, right? These things, these pre-dynastic kings was on the Abydos kings list. Okay, they were recognized by the kings that came after them as real kings of Kemet. Right now, when a Kushite king died, he was said to merge with Asa. Death was the end. It was an initiation into higher existence. The tomb then wasn't just a grave; it was the gate. The gate. All right. And I mentioned before the false door. Whenever there was a false door in a tomb, it represent that the Europeans would like to say it was to trick the grave robbers. No, it was actually a portal for the ancestors to go into the Duat. In the grave, it was covered in sacred symbols and carefully constructed using cosmic proportions. It guided the soul through the Duat, the spiritual dimension beyond physical death. Right now, animal symbolism ties this even further, even deeper. The cow or Heteru wasn't just food or farm animal. It was a living archetype, a sacred symbol of motherhood, fertility, and abundance. It represents Heteru, the goddess of joy, beauty, music, and spiritual intoxication. Now, and also when you see the cow or a bull, it represented power. In the unseen world, the cow was a cosmic nourisher, feeding the soul with divine essence. By the way, this piece is a piece. This was from ancient Nubia. This was not an Egyptian piece of jewelry right here. This was a Nubian piece of jewelry with Heteru on there. See? Yeah. And so also the lion, the serpent, and the falcon, all these creatures weren't just part of nature, but they were spiritual frequencies, or they were symbolic representation of what the king or the queen should be. The lion, the serpent, the falcon, all these things were characteristics of what a king or queen should be. Okay, they were how the universe communicated with the intuitive mind. Now, by the way, since we're talking about Heteru and them, because there are some structures further into Sudan, I think in Nabta Playa, that's older than the Sphinx, that's older than the pyramids. We have to talk about that. Ancient astronomers of Nubia, Nabta Playa, Taurus, and Heteru. Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Not right now, though. Not today. Yeah. So we're not done with that. The ancient astronomers of Nubia is gonna come soon. We're gonna deal with that. Now, the two lands. Even the idea of ruling two lands, Kush and Kemet, was layered with esoteric meaning and Kemetic science. On the surface, yeah, it referred to the southern and northern territories. That was easy, right? That's easy. But in the spiritual science of the Kushites, the two lands also symbolize duality, the material and the immaterial, the body, the soul, earth, the sky, as above, so below. In order for a person to be named and recognized as king or queen of any of these lands, Kush or Kemet, you had to control two lands, not just physical, but spiritual also. You had to control yourself. You have to control the animalistic urge of that nature. That's why you had the Haru Emaket with the head of a person in the body of a lion. You had to be above that. But you needed that, right? So the king wasn't just a monarch. He was a mediator of worlds, okay? He was trained to maintain harmony in the scene in the scene realm while remaining attuned to the laws of the unseen. That's the reason why I don't care. I don't care what people say. I think Akhenaten, he was out of balance. Let's argue. As phenomenal as he is, or he was already trained in the Kemetic sciences and all those things. So why did you go out of balance like that and throw the Kemetic dynasty into isfet or turmoil? You know. So, and also the queen was often the priestess in her own right. She balanced and enhanced this energy, grounding divine wisdom into earthly form. This is what makes Kushite spiritual science so unique. It was advanced. It wasn't compartmentalized. There wasn't a science in one corner, religion in another, and art somewhere else. Everything flowed together. Everything was holistic knowledge of the stars, informed farming. Metallurgy was linked to theology. Healing was done through herbs and sound vibration. Music heals also. Music does heal. Spirit and matter were always in dialogue, right? Now, and by the way, I'll get to King Nuda in a second. So when we study Ancient Kush, we're not just studying old monuments and forgotten myths. We're studying a blueprint of balance, and the laws were for both physical and metaphysical worlds, not just history. It's for the soul, right? Now, dealing with the queen really quick, she balanced and enhanced this energy. What do you think? Should we be able to control our physical and spiritual nature? Like and comment below. Let me know. Should we be able to control that? Do we have, matter of fact, are we able to do that? You see what I'm saying? Because it's right now, what's going on is, I don't know about anybody else's community, but in the Black community, it's out of balance. We know a lot of things. We can do a lot of things, but we're still out of balance. Something is off. Okay. Now let me know. Now, oh, I forgot about that. Book reference, really quick. Sacred Science. Okay. If you want us to get into more Kemetic sciences and everything, this is a good one. Okay. The King of Pharaonic Theocracy by R.A. Swallow D. Lubris. It's a good book. Good book. Now, we talked about a little bit about the political and spiritual power of the Kandake Queens, feminine leadership, Nubian history, symbolism. We're about to get into that. The esoteric role of Apedemak. We're about to get into all that. So we're not done. We're not done. Here we go. Now, the Lion Temple of Naqa. Yep. The Lion Temple of Naqa. Now, in the deserts of ancient Nubia, the sun, stone, and the silence covered the sands of the Lion Temple of Naqa is not only a religious devotion, but metaphysical science. This temple, dedicated to the enigmatic lion-headed deity Apedemak, is more than a monument. It is a energy portal, a microcosmic blueprint of Kushite cosmic order, and a living text encoded with sacred principles, right? Now, this building, okay, before we get to the building, Apedemak, I love this picture, by the way. Apedemak is unlike any deity in the Egyptian pantheon where the Egyptians worship Heru as the falcon, sky, Neteru, or Set. The Kushites brought forth a new divine figure rooted in their own environment and worldview. See, we have to make things work for us wherever we are. Apedemak is shown as a man with a lion's head, not just a symbol of brute strength, but cosmic authority. Okay, animal wisdom and transformative energy. Okay, now it reminds you of the Sphinx. Okay, lions in African symbology are not simply predators, they were regal spirits, guardians of sacred order. In choosing a lion, the Kushites were expressing more than military might. They were asserting a philosophy of leadership that is fierce but rooted in balance. Apedemak was not just a Neteru or a god of war. He was also a patron of fertility and renewal, suggesting that destruction and creation were two sides of the same divine force. Okay? Yeah. We're out of balance. I agree. Yeah. And so So Apedemak, he suggested that destruction and creation were two sides of the same divine force. It reminds me of the 5% Nation. Shout out to the fam out there. They always say you got to build and destroy, or you're either doing one or the other. Okay. Now, so one on the temple walls, Apedemak is depicted as powerful scenes, spearing enemies, towering over kings, but also nourishing the land and conferring legitimacy to rulers. In one unique scene, he's shown with 3 lion heads sprouting from a single neck. That is terrifying. I'm not gonna lie to you. 3 lion heads. Hold on, bro. That symbolizes multidimensional power, the ability to see, act, and judge beyond the ordinary, right? In one unique scene, he's shown with 3 lion heads. Like I said, this is shown, like I said before, is sprouting, 3 lion heads sprouting from a single neck, symbolizing multidimensional power. See, this is the more of a better drawing, a rendering of that temple image. He's able to see, act, and judge all at the same time, beyond the ordinary, right? And so this points to a esoteric interpretation of Apedemak. He represents the higher self of the king, the awakening aspect of the divine masculinity that has conquered not just the enemies, but the lower self. Divine masculinity. Hold on, because we always talk about divine femininity, but we forget there's a divine masculinity also. Balance, right? So, in essence, to rule like Apedemak was to rule with inner fire, external command, and spiritual depth. Do you think we as a people still need these principles? Okay, inner fire, external command, and spiritual depth. Let me know. All right, we got some time. Oh, I forgot. Y'all let me know if you want us to do a Q&A real quick towards the end. Type Q&A in there. All right. If you're live, all right, put Q&A in there. We may have time to do that. All right, let's go. All right, now at architecture and cosmic symbolism. Now, the Lion Temple is small but packed with cosmic symbolism. Its layout follows principles of sacred geometry, orientation, proportion, and symmetry intended to resonate with the divine order of the cosmos. Temples in Kush weren't just places of worship. These were portals between dimensions. As you see, this is the outer court here, and it's not in that angle that I wanted, but it is going into a straight line as you're going through it by symmetry and by degrees, right? The inner sanctum of the Lion Temple was a place where the king or priest could commune with Apedemak directly. Okay, now constructed during the reign of Nanakamani and Queen Amanirenas around the first century, these sites reflect civilization fluent in the language of the Neteru. Okay, sacred geometry, astral alignments, and the alchemical fusion of divine masculine and feminine. At the heart of the temple is Apedemak, the lion-headed Neteru. Now, as you notice, you see here, we have on this image, we have the facade of the Lion Temple, right? We have Apedemak right here, Apedemak right there, Haru on the top left, and Nekbet. We talked about the vulture Nekbet before, and King Nanakamani and Queen Amanirenas. Okay, so we have them both at their station, ready to hand out justice and equality, as well as punishment to those who are against the Kushite Empire. Okay, let me see what this. Yeah, we're about to get. Masculine divinity. Yeah, we're about to get into that. Yeah. All right. So, and here's another image there. As you can see, we have Apedemak right there, and he's standing between the king and queen. All right, giving them balance and giving them advice. Now, like I said before, the lions were regal spears and was just a god of war, but he was destruction and creation. This is another image of the Lion Temple. These are lions, okay, lining the walkway or walk up to the Lion Temple of Naqa, okay. And just like the Temple of Waset or Luxor, you see the rams there, which represented Ra. We have the lions here, okay, and this is in Nubia. Okay, and this is a better picture right there. Okay, and this is a walkway up to the what's left of that temple. Okay, now the lion of the inner sun. Somebody mentioned the fire signs and everything. To the uninitiated, Apedemak appears merely as a Netzeru of war, but within the spiritual science of Kush, he represents the solar fire within the human soul. Okay, the intelligence of the divine will, clothed in the primal force of nature. His lion head is not just symbolic of physical power, but for those who are into that, he represents the third chakra. Okay, I don't know anything about that, but some scholars say that. Okay, he's into the third chakra, the solar plexus, the seat of personal power, transformation, and kingship. Esoterically, Apedemak represents the awakened inner fire, the point at which a human being becomes more than flesh and begins to move in alignment with cosmic law and with the whole world, right? In many scenes at Naqa, Apedemak is shown as towering over kings, holding weapons and spears. Yet these enemies can also be interpreted symbolically. When you see these pictures of them knocking down the enemies, there, it may be symbolic. They may represent the inner chaos, the issues that we have on the inside, unmastered emotions, base instincts. They may get out. Y'all, when I mentioned the secret chambers under the pyramids, I said it may not be physical, it may be a spiritual thing. These people here that are knocking out these enemies, it may not be a physical enemy, it may be a spiritual enemy. It may be their own flaws they're trying to take out. They may be trying to work something that's going on within themselves. So to be a devotee of Apedemak, right? It was not just to seek physical dominance, but to engage in spiritual battle of self-mastery. Yeah. So esoterically, like I said, he's awakening the inner fire, at a point in which a human becomes more than flesh, but he becomes a part in line with cosmic law. And in many scenes, he is shown towering over the kings and everything. Yet these enemies can be interpreted as inner chaos, unmastered emotions, all these things, right? Now, somebody asked about divine masculinity and royal alchemy. Okay. Now, unlike many other pantheons, the Kushite spiritual system did not pit masculine and feminine deities against each other. Okay. In the Lion Temple, both king and queen were shown together making offerings to Apedemak. They were both together. Okay, this is not a political symbolism, it's a metaphysical instruction that we need both masculine and feminine power. Okay, we need light and dark. We need all these things. They represent the union of solar, stellar, and lunar energies within the initiate. Whoever is seeking that kind of knowledge, Apedemak accepts their offerings only when duality is reconciled. You cannot be against men. You can't be against women. We need each other, right? Okay, so this reflects the principles of Ma'at in Kush. Okay, let me show you. This represented Ma'at. They may not have had a feather, but they may have had a king and a queen standing next to the ancestor or next to the Netzeru. That was balanced to them. Okay, and so this was the inner harmony. Okay, the king and queen were also initiates. Their presence at the temple suggests that the rulership in Kush was not only political but initiatic. The ruler had to undergo symbolic death and resurrection in the temple. Just as the Apedemak conquers chaos, so must the king conquer his lower self. The alchemical path of African spirituality, African knowledge. The king forged like iron, tested in fire, crowned not just with gold, but with divine knowledge, right? The sacred temple as a divine engine, the temple as a sacred engine. Yeah. Let me see. I've heard that the underground levels of the temples were spiritual dimensions before. Yep, they are. And true enough, of course, there are some locations that have actual physical chambers, but a lot of these things, there was always multifaceted, multi-layered. It was twofold. It was duality in that. There were the inner chambers of the soul that we had to deal with, right? So a lot of people looking for and digging around, looking for underground chambers where you have to dig in your own heart to find these secret places. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So now dealing with the sacred temple, the Lion Temple itself is an esoteric machine built with precise geometric proportions and oriented according to solar and stellar alignment. It functions as an energetic resonator designed to channel and amplify spiritual frequency. The inner sanctuary, or naos, is likely reserved for high level initiates. There's levels to this thing, right? Those who are trained in the mysteries of Apedemak, which may have included breath work, dream incubations, invocations, and fasting. These rites they would have these rites during certain times of the year. Each relief on the temple wall isn't just decorate. It wasn't just for decoration. It gave them instruction. It gave them metaphysical laws and rules, regulations. For example, Apedemak emerging from a lotus is a motive seen in the temple signifying the birth of the divine consciousness or the mind, okay? From the primordial waters. We talked about the primordial waters in noon before. The lotus, which blooms from the mud, is another form of spiritual awakening. Furthermore, so the use of the lion form, the three lion heads, represents the trifold nature of divine consciousness, past, present, and future. The funny part is we had that illustration of the Haru and Maket with the two lions and the sun and the horizon in the middle. Now we have the Lion Temple doing the same thing. We have a Apedemak doing the same thing. So you see these past, present, future imageries, mind, body, and soul imageries, or alchemy terms, sulfur, mercury, and salt throughout the Nile Valley before Europe, right? So one more time, we have the illustration of the king and the queen and Apedemak together, okay? And this may not be a physical battle. This may not be a physical battle they had to endure, but it may be a spiritual one. Okay. And we all had to deal with that. And I think that the temple of Waset, illustrating Ramses in his battle at the Battle of Kadesh, is another representation of that spiritual battle. Yes, the Battle of Kadesh was a physical battle for sure, but I believe that it was also a spiritual battle that Ramses had to do and had to go through himself. Okay. Now, so Apedemak was the watcher of the threshold. He was the watcher of the threshold, right? And so the esoteric tradition, every initiate must face a guardian at the threshold, a symbolic force that tests their purity before they can enter the higher states of consciousness or the 12 gates of the Neteru, in the book of Gates, right? Apedemak, with his fierce countenance as lion, served as this function, right? He's the gatekeeper of the inner sanctum of sanctuary of the soul, okay, where the latent potential is refined into divine identity. If by chance the initiate carries impurity, ego, fear, or imbalance, the Neteru, the ancestors, will destroy that. Okay, it won't destroy them, but it will purify, it will destroy those issues, right? But if they are aligned with them, with that, they will be empowered with courage and vision, right? This is echoed throughout the temple. And so you will see that balance throughout the temple. Let me see. Can we say this was the start of the Trinity ideology? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure. I can't. I don't. I try not to go too far into the weeds when it come down to Trinitarian. But it was always three. It was always something similar. Was it the same as what we know? What we know today? No, but similar. Like three different things and three different characteristics or 3 different roles, right? Okay. Oh, Love Child. Shout out to Love Child. Okay, she got them beats. All right, she's great. Yeah, M Hotep. Okay, peace. All right, Volta. Shout out to the fam. Now, here we go. So, the lion and the ancestors. In many African traditions, the lion is a symbol of ancestral power. In Ethiopia and Sudan and other parts of the continent, the lion is not feared but respected as a messenger of the divine or the Netzeru. Apedemak in this light becomes not just another deity or god, but a spiritual archetype of the deified ancestor, a warrior king who ascends into divinity. Okay. With and watches over the land. Okay. We hear the stories like the Lion King and many others, right? And it's funny how Europe would use a lion, but they don't have lions in their area. I'm just saying, but I digress. This is important because it shows the Kushite religion is not disconnected from Kemet or Ethiopia, but it's connected to all the people. The Netzeru wasn't distant; they was right there. They were reflections of human potential, elevated through ritual, initiation, and legacy. Apedemak was both protector and aspiration. It was an ideal. Okay. In his temple, rulers reaffirmed the covenant with the land, the ancestors, and the cosmos. Apedemak, when it comes down to African memory, though modern religions have tried to erase him, modern phenomenon have tried to do away with him, Apedemak survives in code within this symbolism, across Ethiopia, Sudan, and Central Africa, in the lion clans, royal regalia, even in the Rastafarian movement, the line of the tribe of Judah. You hear and see that. He's a living archetype of ancestral power, the part of the African soul that cannot be colonized. You're very welcome. The line of Naqa is not extinct, it's not over. He simply waits for those who are ready to reclaim their cosmic inheritance. All right. Now, Mo asked the question. He asked the question: is there a connection between Sekhmet and the Heru Emaket? See, y'all playing a dirty game. Y'all know when y'all ask me a question like that, I got something for it. Okay. Yeah. Brother Mo asked the question. Shout out to Brother Mo. He's here. He in the chat. Greetings, everyone. Okay. Yeah. And brother Ferguson, coming with the fire. It's summertime. We about to be up. It's about to be on. I got nothing but time now. So yeah. Maybe just time to hear the answer. I'm gonna tell you this: there is a connection. Will I go into detail today? Nope. I got you. It's the thing is, there is a connection between Sekhmet, the Sphinx, and even the kings of Egypt. There is a connection. I ain't doing that today. See, y'all trying to make me work overtime and everything. Nah, bro. Nah, we're not doing that. But there is a connection, though. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, there is a connection. Okay, there is. It is. And so, yeah, the Lion Temple of Naqa stands today as a silent witness to Black civilization that was in line with cosmic order. Apedemak was not only the Netzeru, but he was a mirror of human possibility, lion-shaped reminder to live, to rise, and to rule is to serve people and humanity. For those on the spiritual path, for those who are those who are seeking that kind of knowledge, right? Apedemak still you can see traces of, right? It's not just in words, but in presence. But to deal with that, you got to embrace that. So even though the ancient Kushite form of that kind of knowledge is kind of faded, with the decline of Meroe, his presence lingers in the cultural memory of the region. His lion imagery can still be found in crest flags and oral history of the Nubian and Ethiopian people. In many ways, Apedemak embodies a type of African divinity that modern African spirituality is beginning to reclaim. It's not foreign to us. It's not imposed. It's homegrown. Okay? And the world's still struggling to understand intellectual, spiritual depth of Africa's past. The Lion Temple of Naqa and the cult of Apedemak and the Kandake Queens hold reminders for us. Okay, they're the torchbearers. They're light bringers. Apedemak wasn't just the Lion of Teru, he was the king maker. So to study Kush is to remember that sacred power of African family, the African womanhood embodied in the Kandake Queens, who led armies, signed treaties, governed nations, and sat upon the thrones not only by permission but by divine right, because they had to be made to be queens. They had to be queen. They had to be initiated, right? These were not exceptions to patriarchal norms. They were reflections of a society that was spiritually imbalanced. And to remember Kush is to awaken, is to wake up. Yeah, Kemet is one thing, but Kush is a totally different thing, right? To awaken to that ancient spiritual system, that custom that once made the empire thrive, not only by brute force alone, but through initiation, meditation, astrology, metallurgy, and sacred rites. This is the real genius of Kush, civilization where queens ruled like Neteru, and the Neteru was taught through nature, the people who knew the stars because they walked with them. All right. Now, so let me see before we go, because we got a little bit of Q&A real quick. Let me see. Queen Meta said, "What we have to stay tuned to next week? It's gonna be a minute. It's gonna be a minute because I gotta do my homework. I gotta put everything together. I just don't throw stuff out. But yeah, it is in the mix. It is in the works. Okay, Grand Madam Tarot, it is in the mix, and we got to do our finale for the Queens of the South. We got to finish it. We got one more episode. We gotta finish. I couldn't go live Friday because we had to go to Langston University to help my son move again. So that was an adventure. Okay, but yeah, next Sunday we got one more, and that will be it for the Queens of the South. Yeah. So we talked about the political and spiritual power of the Kandake Queens. We talked about that. Feminine leadership, Nubian history, symbolism, Lion Temple of Naqa, the esoteric role of Apedemak, Kushite practices, links between ancient Ethiopia, Kush, and Kemet, hidden African spiritual systems. Like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And I got to do roll call. I got to check roll. All right, now. All right. So the question is Apedemak in Egypt too? Okay, here. I guess the Q&A has started. All right, here we go. All right. No, not in. It is not in a sense of Apedemak. It is Sekhmet. Okay, that's two different things, two different concepts, right? But no, in the short version, no, Apedemak is not in Egypt, but we have another line that's which is Sekhmet. And we have learned that Sekhmet is another form of Heteru, also full of wrath. Because normally we would hear Sekhmet as being the angry form of Baset. But recently, in other traditions, Sekhmet is the wrath form of Heteru. Okay, so question is it Library Without Borders? Shout out to the fam. I want to ask you if you've seen the video circulating about Africa being upside down, and also and also that the size was modified, made smaller, and does the knowledge change the history of Egypt? Okay, yes, I've seen it. It's basically because remember the Nile River. I'll make sure I find a picture of that. But the Nile River goes from south to north, right? So it basically goes in the reverse direction, and so showing the point of origin up south in the Congo, in Uganda and Kenya, going upward. So yes, I've seen that. The size was modified. You can fit a lot of countries in Africa, still have room. So yes, the size was modified. Right now, Greenland is bigger than Africa, and we know that's a lie. Okay. Yeah. So by design, Africa was made smaller. Yeah. By design, Africa was made smaller. And does it change the knowledge of Egypt? Certainly, because the reason why is because it shows that Egypt is not the mother of ancient civilization. It is further inland. It is further in the south in Ethiopia. That's the reason why we got this. This is the reason why we're doing this. Okay. And the reason why another reason why it changes the knowledge of history of Egypt, it excludes a lot of other people. It includes quote unquote sub-Saharan Africans, and it excludes the people of the Mediterranean and Mesopotamia. You got to understand, this is a massive mind trick, right? Where they're saying Middle East of what? From what? Okay. And so I understand that I think Volta said the map is not upside down, but I'm saying that there are some maps that do have Africa another way to show the different flow of where the Nile River is going. It's going from south to north. The countries are still where they are, but we have to realize that these weren't state line borders. These were 1,000 years ago, 1,000+ years ago, there was no state lines where Egypt is. It was just regions. It was areas. People were just going from one place to the next. Yeah. And this is, remember, these state lines weren't in place until after the Berlin Conference. And that's in the late 1800s, right? So before that, people who lived in Kenya could migrate easily, go to Uganda, and Uganda could easily go into Ethiopia back and forth. Okay. Afro in NAV World says the continent is so large, you to give you an idea, it's about 9 hours from Nairobi, Kenya to Dakar, Senegal by flight. That's a long time. That's a long time. So it says so it's orientation only for the Nile countries, Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia. True, but you got to understand that these nations weren't isolated. They were also connected to other nations around them. Okay, because remember, Libya also had their kings also, and Chad had their kings also. And so I get it. Now, here we go. Let's see, roll call. Let me see, get this roll call real quick. Now, One Voice Africa, shout out to the fam. Solomon, Solomon Food and Vlogs, G-Man, Quest, Queen of Kings Empress, Mo, Brother Joseph Ferguson, Brother Rashad Davis, Ancient Divinations, Adrian Rice, Library Without Borders, Peggy Harrison, Miss Blue, Indigo Prince, Kudriel Ankara, Kiara Haynes, DFW African American Museum. I'm shout out to Brother Elliot Grant. He's been trying to get me outside. And we're going to try to connect with the DFW African American Museum and do some work there. It's going to be pretty cool. Jay Williams, Mark Carroll, and Nudie Davila. General Bunches, Kemetic Nation. Oh, yeah. Speaking of Kemetic Nation, not only are we going to try to bring Theo B back, we're going to try to bring Kemetic Nation back. We're going to get in on the discussion. Clark Nation Supreme, Didi, Zep Tippy Slim. If you are present, I didn't call your name. Come in here. Yeah. So if you are present, I didn't call your name, come in here. Yeah. Oh, hold on. In the mountains of Tanzania, there is a resort on the lake where the Nile begins. I saw it. Yeah. That is the source of the Nile. Okay. They said that came from the foothills of the mountains of the moon where God happy dwells. That is that area. Yeah. Yeah. So it was basically a bowl that went that basically pushed the Nile the other direction. Okay. Yeah. And this summer, we have a new series. Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush, a unified sacred art that is coming this summer. Okay. We're going to deal with Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush together this summer. Okay. But we're going to use Ethiopia as our anchor. Okay. And what triggered that is this book here. Okay. The Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire by Sister Drusilla Dungy Houston. We did a book study on this about a year ago, and a lot of people enjoyed the discussion. So we're going to get into it. I will make sure. Grand Madam Taro said, "Add me to the roll call, please." I'll make sure. I will make sure I add you to our to the roll. Yeah, I'll make sure I do that. Yeah, it is a classic, and it really turned this podcast into a different thing. And because for a while, I was doing overviews of various regions. I was using the Lost Cities of Africa by Basil Davidson, and we was doing West Africa as a region, South Africa, and so on. And in Ethiopia just really took off. Speaking of that, we got a bonus too. So we still gonna do our Sunday or Monday lives, but we got another one. This is a Thursday. This is going to be pre-recorded. The Ethiopian series, the new series for the summer, Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush. That's going to be live on Sunday or Monday. The Pillars of Power. That's dealing with the esoteric heart of ancient Egypt. That is going to be pre-recorded. That's going to be recorded. A lot of you guys enjoy the Kemetic science and esoteric information. So on Thursday, we're gonna drop those. So in about another week, I think we're gonna start June 15th. Okay, June 15th, we're gonna start that June 15th, and we got the finale for Queens of the South next Sunday. But after that, I need a week off. I need some. I'm tired. So, but after that, it's gonna be like Sunday and Thursday. You'll see episodes from us Sunday and Thursday. And somebody, a lot of fans was talking about they wanted to know about the 7 Heteru. And the War of the Gods is coming up. So a lot of people last week asked about that. So back then for Queen of the 7 Stars and the War of the Gods. That's gonna be heavy. We're gonna wait. We're gonna deal with the finale and everything, but we're gonna spin a block and deal with these 7 stars. That's something. Okay. And Net, the primordial Egyptian goddess, in her cult in ancient Egypt, because she was part of the primordial order, right? And so we'll deal with that all over the summer also. So because let me see here. Let me see if I can get to it. Now, let me see. I have a list. I have a little list here. So I try to keep myself on track. But summer week, the first week we deal with connecting the dots, sacred links across Northeast Africa. And then we're going to come back and deal with the Jed Pillar on Thursday, June 19th. And on the 22nd of June, the rise and fall, timelines, invasions, and resilience in Ethiopia. We're going to deal with that. And then June 26th, the scepter of authority. So between those days, we're going to deal with Ethiopia, Kush, and so on. And then we deal with some Kemetic science. That's how we deal with that. All right. Now, books. All right. We got some books. Now, the link is in the description, but for this summer, okay, there's other books, but I think these books will be good. The Ethiopians of History by Richard Pankhurst and the Keba Nagast. Okay, this summer we will be dealing with Ethiopia a little bit more. So I think my strong suggestion is that you get that, and the link is in the description. But the affiliate link is in the description. So I think that these are some good. I have some other ones. I got this, of course, one for Ethiopian, and this is another good one. Let me get out that. A History of Ethiopia by Harold G. Marcus. This is good. I don't just talk about this. I actually study this. This is something. This is my heart's work right here. This is something that I did while I was at Paul Quinn College in Dallas, and Ethiopia and Sudan became my focus. Brother Ferguson, he said, Kushite science. Yeah, that's loading. That is loading. I got something for it. Oh, hold that thought. Yeah. So these are the books, the Ethiopians in History and Keba Nagast. And to deal with the Kemetic science, the Kushite science side of it, Temple in Man and Sacred Science is good. Okay. Get that. Check it out. All right. Now, for the fam, this is my new book. This is my new book, Crusades and Jihad in East Africa. I will do a mini series later on in August or September, but this deals with the religious conflicts and their impact. This is during the Middle Age period. This is a lot of whenever people talk about the Middle Ages, they think about the Crusades in Europe or Timbuktu, not realizing that Ethiopia and Sudan got active. All right, so this is a book written by me, and that's also out there. It's on Amazon and all the things. So I'm really happy about that. And so check it out. Now, If you like the content, Librarian Without Borders, Ethiopia and Sudan owe you. This endeavor is formidable, no small task. I believe that Ethiopia and Sudan should get their shine also. Okay, that's what I believe. All right, I believe that we can argue all day about what phenotype the ancient Egyptians were and all this kind of thing, and we neglect Sudan and Ethiopia, and they have stories to tell too. Okay, and that's where my heart is. Okay, I do enjoy Kemet, but Ethiopia and Sudan is something else, right? So, so if you like the content, share it with someone you think that might enjoy it, or share it on your social media of choice. Yeah. Brother Ferguson says the unseen, it has a concept in comics, and the thievery continues. It do. And but speaking of comics, I'm gonna let Rock With Me Nation and Theo B talk about that. And that was fun. That was fun. And most of the mirror pyramids are in Sudan. Yep. There are more. And get this, I learned that there was about the pyramids of Sudan when I was in college. Like, I was all about ancient Kemet for many years. And then when I went to Paul Quinn College and Miss Matthews, we did the African history course, and she told me that there was more pyramids of Sudan than there are in Egypt. I was out of there. That was a wrap for me. Yeah, I really, that was something. And so, yeah, so we talked about the thrones of fire and temples of light, the Kandake Queens, and esoteric knowledge of ancient Kush. Before I turn you loose, are there any other questions and concerns? Oh, speaking of that, I'm thinking about it. I am in the process. For those who are interested, I am in the process of making some online courses. Okay, I am making some real online courses. Because for those who don't know, I am a teacher for real, and I develop curriculum and things like that for school districts. Now I'm in the process of making our own with the focus on Ethiopia, Sudan, and Kemet. And also, I'm in the process of developing a 12-week consulting course where I would teach people how to teach history. Okay, I've been doing it. I've been in education for, this will be my 12th year, and I've taught and mentored teachers and taught them how to teach others. So I think it's time for me to do that for the community also. So what I'm going to do is develop a consulting course, and it will be college intensive. Okay, it will go. And so for those who want to teach history but don't know how to frame it or don't know how to put it together, things like that, this is what it's going to be about. Okay, so I will have some online courses that focus on Ethiopia, Kemet, and Kush, but yeah, I'll deal with how to develop history classes and stuff like that. But have you read Dr. Finch's new book, Now Valid Civilization? No, I haven't. The question is, have you read Dr. Finch's new book, Now Valid Civilization: A 10,000-Year History? I have not. I need to get that. I need to get that. That'll be on my birthday list. That'll be on my wish list. Yeah, I need to check that out. That's a good one. All right. There's some books that I know that stapled are. There's some books that you gotta get, for sure. Dr. Ben's work, Africa, Mother Western Civilization, that's for sure. I don't for Dr. Anthony Broder, Now Valley Civilization, yeah, that's a good one. That's another good one. That's a must. Let me see. What else? So it's very important. And of course, Dr. Chanketja Diop, the African Origin of Civilization. Yeah. So I don't just talk it, I actually read it, and I binge read them one at a time, especially in this one, then with Dr. Ben, this is more like a workbook. You just can't sit and read that. You got to actually digest this. You got to take your time with this. This is loaded, but You got to get it. If you're serious about that, you got to get it, and you got to break it down. Yeah, so it is a classic, and I think that we got to get back to reading the classics as well as making new classics for the future. So I think that is very important. I think that African history, um, a history period, is important, but it takes more of us who know how to do it, who know how to. But it's enough. It's enough people out there to argue all day. Make a book, write an article, put it together. Yeah. So Volta had a question: why do Nubians in Egypt speak a different language than the Copts? Time, time separation. It's there. Now I would say this: there are root words that are the same, but the inflection, the application may be different. And the Coptic people, even though the Coptic language, I'm gonna say the Coptic language is, shout out to the family in Egypt. The Coptic language is a derivative of the Meta Nature. It's a phonic version of the Meta Nature, right? So, but the Nubians in Egypt speak different than language of the Copts because of time and just separation. You see what I'm saying? And truth be told, because it's just even in the United States, there are some terms that we use that may in one area may mean something different in another. Yeah, it's just time and separation. Yeah, but should we reject it? No, I think that we should look into the Coptic language to kind of help get an understanding of the meta nature, or at least bridge the gap. You know, because I read every now and then. I would look into the Coptic language sometimes. Do I know it fluently? No, but do I try? Yes, I try to read it. Okay, because I know that is a bridge between the old language and the new language. Yeah, so I think it's very important. Any other questions before I turn you loose? Any other questions or concerns before I turn you loose? Thank you guys for hanging with me, for rolling with me, and we're going to try to do this live at least once a week, and do a recap or another video like Thursday towards the end of the week. So I think that works out for me. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to like and all. Yeah, so I really appreciate you guys, and I am doing some other things. I have some other things in mind, but I gotta put pen to paper. I gotta write it. Before I say anything, I gotta write it first. And I know that have been requests. I know that the fam is asking about other connections, other groups like the Congo and many others. We're going to break that down. We're going to get into that. But yeah, I think that in a few weeks we will kick off and deal with Ethiopia, because I think it's important. And then we'll deal with Ancient Kush also. So it's a lot of great things that we're going to do. And thank you for rolling with me and being patient. If there are no questions, if there are no concerns, I'm about to turn you loose. Okay. And don't forget, we have, of course, the books. The links are in the description. The books are there. My book, the link for my book is there, and all the things. If there are, so here it is. Okay. The Crusades and Jihad in East Africa. It is out there. Go and get that. If there are any suggestions, let me know. I will do that. If there are any questions, feel free to ask questions in the comments. For those who are on the replay, if you have questions, let me know. If you have concerns, let me know. I try not to go venture off way off into the weeds or into some kind of other area. If I don't read it, I don't see it. If it's not in a primary or secondary source or a reputable source, I'm not going to tell y'all. Okay. It's easy to venture off into La La Land like the History Channel has done. Like, bro, everything does not go into the alien category. Everything is not from aliens, bro. I can't do that. So what I do is read the information, read the facts, read, write, study. That's what it's about. Okay. Because Because if I don't, this podcast will be nothing more than what other podcasts have become. Okay. I want this, my goal for this podcast is to focus on actual history and some symbolism. Okay. Not all symbolism and a little history. No, I want our foundation to be solid. Okay. And the best way to do that is to have book studies, is to use books as a reference point and not just, just a side note, right? But all right. All right. You listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast, and Ujumbe means message. We talk about thrones of fire and temples of light. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all the things. And I will talk to you later. Oh, by the way, don't forget to, if you want to see the amazing civilization of Ethiopia, you want to see that video, I have that video out. If you want to catch up with our Ethiopian series, I have the playlist for that, and I will talk to you later. Yeah. Yeah, see you next time. All right, fam. Peace.